from the beginning, I really like the use of the symphony orchestra throughout the entire film, especially since at the end, the point of how music has been able to bring together the culture once again and kind of like bring their past into the present and basically have like a revitalization of culture. And I thought that was absolutely stunning and absolutely beautiful. Um, the idea that all these decisions on behalf of a population were made based on essentially political ideas and beliefs that were not thought through all the way and didn't really think of the longevity of how it would affect their citizens was just so wild and honestly such a heartbreaking thing to see and to constantly hear because that's just constantly how governments think. They don't think things through and never really take responsibility for the outcome of some of these terrible decisions that they make without the consent of those who it really affects. So, seeing that live and in full time, and with all the interviews and people whose families were directly connected to it, and how it's affected them, and the idea of how trauma becomes hereditary because it affects the first generation who it directly affected, and then from then on and then forth, when the culture is not exactly as connected as they wish it to be, it feels like a loss of identity. So I loved how by the end it was them trying to reclaim that identity because although they speak the language and they might know the history, not being on the mainland and not being where your ancestors were or should have been is completely heartbreaking, and it pays an homage to the ancestors who unfortunately didn't get to go back. So now them being able to reconnect with this was just so beautiful to see.
I thought the piece was very impactful. It was something that I was not familiar with, which I think is the intent of a piece like this. I think there are a lot of stories of genocide and specific religious-based murder and migrations that are forced through violence that I think are not really recognized besides the people that experience them. And I think history works hard to erase some of those experiences. But I thought the piece worked hard in centering on people that lived through this, people who have studied the conflict and the cultures at length. And I thought that the piece had a very educated and sort of professorial approach to the narrative that I thought made it very compassionate and understanding of what was happening at the core and just how dark and how graphic some of the dynamics were that led to the conflict between the people that were persecuting the Anatolians. I thought that the narrative worked well in sort of creating a human scope around the cultures and how they are quite similar. And I thought it was an interesting examination of how these kind of conflicts play out, how people make differences between certain groups, and how violence ends up being at the root of some of the sort of cultural and geographical understandings of humans in a ways that I think people might be a little bit naive about. And that's the narrative worked well in sort of showing that there was still a very clear one-to-one connection through line from the events of the past and how they are all living in present day.
One of the things that served as a bridge builder and a similarity between Greek and Turkish relations was music. And I do like how it touches on that and how it comes full circle to kind of show how there is a community that exists between these two cultures, despite all of the various history of pain. Seeing the first person accounts, um, specifically this woman who was of the Anatolian Greek background, seeing her stories and her memories. There's so much pain there. It's some of the stuff that she describes is just so horrendous, but she still has this semblance of joy in life that you see towards the end, even though she is describing such horrors of her experience. What makes it really interesting is to see both accounts, like to see both sides telling the story at the same time. So it's not so one-sided over here or over here. You do get a sense of what everyone's experience was. Um, from a first-hand point of view, but also from a historian's point of view. So it just gave me a well-rounded idea of what this conflict was and the results of it and how music has brought this region back together over time.
Such a harrowing but also very necessary documentary. The reason I say necessary is because I feel like through publicity, I think this story needs to be told, because it accounts for a lot of uh, misplaced Greek and Turkish refugees who were forced to relocate. And essentially, there are many families who've been separated, and have no idea whatever became of their loved ones. Um, I feel like this, learning more about this and being able to uh, reach out and connect and find out um, what happened to these relatives, it can give so much closure, especially hearing so many of the tragic stories in this documentary. Um, I feel like if even one family can be reunited from this documentary, I think its purpose has been fulfilled.
One thing I really liked was one of the definitions actually of nostalgia. The third generation of people are called nostalgia, and that nostalgia actually comes from the words nostos, meaning return, and algos, meaning pain. So returning to pain. I thought, wow, I've never heard that about the word nostalgia before, and I thought it was really great information on this documentary to have in the interview for the one of the, I think it was the lady, the historian, that mentioned that. The interviews were great. I love the musician bringing in, the thoughts about music and how music's purpose is to really, remind, heal, and unite. I love that a lot. I took that away from this about music. Just so much about this that was very informative and educational. I liked everything production-wise. I loved the settings of where everybody was being interviewed. I think the colors and the cinematography and just some of the beautiful, beautiful camera shots of the landscape in Turkey and, the different areas that, oh, and one of the things I really liked was there was a point where you were showing an area in the past and then how it looked in the present. I love that a lot. I loved seeing that. I thought that was really cool. A lot of the black and white footage was really cool. I liked all the different visuals and everything. I liked your content a lot.